أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن سادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, today for a few minutes we want to talk about the Subha and or Fajr time. I use both terms because we're more familiar here in the United States with the term Fajr. But for many Muslims, many Muslims, the term Subha is more familiar. And this is actually what the prayer is called in many hadith on the tongue of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, the morning prayer, Subha.
Y'all gotta stop now. Calm down. Stop. You didn't make him stop. You man talking.
And so I say Subha Fajr, same thing, morning prayer, and Suhur. A lot of people are confused or taken aback, or like most of us, we think whenever we see something that we're not used to, that thing that we're not used to, that thing is wrong and what we are doing is correct. If you look at our prayer schedule, our time schedule, first and foremost, here at the masjid, we don't keep a prayer schedule up purposely. You won't find any prayer schedules up throughout the year. And if you do see one up, as soon as one of us get here, we take it down. And the reason why we do that is because people in their mind, even though they won't say it like this, but people think that the prayer schedule or the app you have on your phone, whatever, regardless of what it is, they treat it like it's wahi, like it's revelation. Because the adhan on my phone is going off, that means the prayer time is in, period. Can somebody take them upstairs and show us?
I mean it. Stop.
We're only going to be here for a few minutes. Because the adhan goes off on your phone or because there's a prayer schedule printed somewhere, a lot of us, for some reason, I don't know what that reason is, it's something psychological, we think that thing is revelation. Because the adhan is going off or the time says such and so on there, the prayer must be in, and if you're not going according to that, something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with the app or the schedule. And the schedule or the app, these are merely calculations done by alleged or supposed experts in the field. And as our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us, that he said, La nahsabu wa la naktabu. And he said that for a reason. He said, we do not calculate, nor do we write. Now, obviously that doesn't mean that it's haram to calculate or that it's haram to write. What that hadith means is that we don't base our acts of worship on these things. You already have one of those upstairs. You don't need to bring it upstairs. So, and this is a problem. This is one of the many causes of division in the Muslim Ummah, Because for many acts of worship, hey, calm down, y'all. For many acts of worship, whether it be Salat or Eid or Ramadan, a large section of Muslims are depending on calculations. They're basing their worship off of these calculations. And many Muslims, they don't know, because maybe they follow an organization and that organization calculates, but they don't know that their organization calculates. Because a lot of Muslim organizations nowadays, they're not general. They're not genuine. They're not truthful. They tell you that they calculate, but every year they couch their pronouncements of Ramadan so vaguely that if you're not really reading exactly what they're saying, you're falsely led to believe that they follow the sighting somewhere. For example, the organization may say, our organization, such and such and such and such, we began the month of Ramadan based upon calculations. And then later on in the paragraph or the next paragraph, they'll turn around and say, there was a sighting in such and such place. As if the sighting mattered, as if the sighting affected their decision to begin or end the month of Ramadan. Their decision to begin or end the month of Ramadan had nothing to do with the sighting. They knew, according to their calculations, when they planned on starting Ramadan 5 years ago. They just didn't announce it. But they know exactly when. For example, these groups that follow calculations, they know when they're going to start Ramadan next year, 2019, and 2020, and 2021. They know exactly. Hassan, leave him alone. Come over here. They know exactly when they plan on starting Ramadan, because they're doing it based upon calculations. They're not doing it on any sighting. They're not doing it based upon Saudi sighting or a long distance sighting or a local sighting or any sighting. They're doing it based upon calculation. So a lot of these organizations, they're being upfront, but they're using speech that's reminiscent of a politician. That if you're not really listening, it throw you off about what they're following. Oh, there was a sighting in such and such place, so that's why they began that day. No, that's not why they began. They began based upon calculation. Khadijah, can you help them out? So what we want to talk about right now is our next few minutes that we have is going to be based upon only the Subha prayer or the Fajr prayer. Does anybody have the app on their phone? Yeah, the darn app. What time does it say that Fajr comes in on your app? For today. 4:24, right? On our schedule, it says 3:48. Now I'm going to tell you why there's a difference. When you go to your app or the prayer schedule or whatever program you're using to generate your prayer schedule, based upon the location that you put in, it's going to automatically designate a calculating authority. So you're in North America, it's going to automatically use ISNA's calculation procedure. Now the problem with ISNA's calculation procedure is because ISNA's legislative body, the Fiqh Council of North America, they've determined their calculation states basically that Fajr comes in when the sun is 15 degrees below the horizon. Now, when you get the software or the app, you know, all of this ain't spelled out. But it just, you know, I'm telling you. And if you go into the settings and you go into ISNA and you adjust it, because most of not all of them, you can adjust it. It's going to say Fajr 15 degrees. That's what that 15 means. That based upon their calculations, Fajr comes in when the sun is 15 degrees below the horizon. Now, if you check every other option, whether it be the Karachi or the Muslim World League, you're going to get at least 5 different options that you can choose, ISNA being one of them. Everyone else says that the sun is at least 18 degrees, meaning lower, further away from the horizon. Everyone else says 18 degrees. Some say 18.5, some say 19, some say 19.5. But no one is nowhere near 15. So what that translates to mean is that according to them, Fajr or Subha comes in later than what everybody else is saying. And what time did you say it was?
24.
24. And here we got 48, so that's how many minutes? 3:48.
40 minutes.
So about 40-minute difference. Right? So when someone sees that, because most people, they're not thinking about this, whatever. And so when someone sees it, they say, hey man, your prayer schedule's wrong. My prayer schedule says come in 4:23. The reason why our prayer schedule is different because I went in and I generated another prayer schedule and I used a different setting from ISNA. I believe I used Muslim World League, I think. Whichever one is 19.5.
I have a
Make it quick, I ain't finished. No, go ahead. Is it quick?
Probably not.
And so, why this presents a problem, because let's say for argument's sake, ISNA was wrong, and it is. It's much more than 15 degrees. Well, let's say that they're wrong, and we are saying that they're wrong, right? Any other time of year, it doesn't matter, because what that means is that, okay, if they're saying Fajr comes in at 4:23 and it comes in earlier, it's no big deal, because if you make it at 4:23, it just means it's already been in for 40 minutes or whatever. It doesn't affect the time that they're saying that it goes out. So it's not a problem. The problem presents itself during the month of Ramadan, because you have to stop eating before Fajr comes in. So if you're eating up until 4:23, you're breaking that rule. You're eating into Fajr. Even if you try to be safe, okay, I'm going to stop eating 10 minutes before the time, that's still not enough time. So this is why we go through the trouble of adjusting our schedule, even using a prayer schedule and adjusting it and putting it out for the month of Ramadan. Because we don't want the believers to be eating all up into the prayer time, invalidating their fast. Now, many Muslims may say, man, so what, man? Man, this is nitpicking and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if that's your position, alhamdulillah, that's your position. You're responsible for yourself. We're not here to beat you over the head. But as far as the information that the masjid puts out, it's our responsibility to be meticulous and to be safe. If you don't want to be safe with your fast and your deen, that's on you, mashallah. That's your prerogative. Our only desire is to put the information out there If you feel comfortable with Isna and they're 15 degrees and they're, being 30, 40 minutes different than the rest of the Ummah and every other calculating body out there, fadl, that's on you. Go right on ahead. So, those of us here at this masjid, we talk about this several times, and I've talked about this more than I care about it. But I'm just trying to explain it a little differently, maybe a little slower than I have in the past, so that if people see it, you encounter people, you're able to explain it a little bit better. It has to do with the method of calculation. And ISNA's calculation, which is what by default your app on your phone or your prayer schedule that you're generating, that's what it goes to by default. If you give them a location in North America, automatically it's ISNA. So unless and until you go into the settings and change it, you're going to get that later time. And any other time of the year is not a problem, but for Ramadan, it is a problem. And if you think everybody else could be wrong and ISNA is right, my challenge to you would be to stay up and pay attention and look at the sky and see what time the prayer comes in for yourself. And I'm not saying that you judge the prayer time by this, but one cheating way is pay attention to when the birds start chirping. The birds start every place I've ever lived, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, both sides of Pennsylvania, every place I've lived, the birds chirping in Jamaa'ah is usually indicative of when the prayer time comes in. Them birds start chirping, and you check, it's time for prayer. With that being said, if you up eating suhoor anyway, you're going to realize that them birds start chirping way before 4:23, even if you're not watching the sky and everything. Exactly, Hussein. Hussein Muhammad said, I just checked the times for Fajr, and all of them are at least a half hour ahead of Isna. That's what we're saying. So, we need to be careful. Okay, what time is it now? 8:36. We have about 7 more minutes for Maghrib. As a side note, there's a problem for Maghrib as well. I haven't checked the reason why that there's a problem with their calculations for Maghrib, but I suspect that it's because because technically speaking, there are a lot of different types of sunset. You got nautical sunset, real sunset, at least 2 or 3 other types of sunsets. And so you got to determine what definition of sunset are you using. Because I think I forgot what name, but I think the sunset that they use, like when you read the newspaper and they give you the time of sunset or you watch the news, well, I think that sunset is when half of the sun disappears below the horizon. Whatever name of sunset that is, I think that's what they use. And I suspect that these apps are using a similar definition. They're doing it based upon some other variant definition of sunset, and not the Islamic definition of sunset, meaning the complete sun has disappeared below the horizon. And so you're going to find at least a 6-minute difference in your app or prayer schedule between that of real Maghrib. And you really can't do it here because you really can't see the horizon. There's hills and mountains everywhere. But in Philadelphia, it's real easy to tell. You just watch the sunset and have your phone in your hand with the app ready to go. And I guarantee you that, especially if you in South Philly, like if you're in the Grays Ferry area, which is where I used to live and everything, it's kind of low because it's near the airport. So there ain't too many high buildings there. And when your Adhan starts going off, you can still see the sun. Like for those of you who are living in Philly, pretend you driving from West Philly and you coming across the Grays Ferry Bridge and you make a left on Grace Ferry. Say you're going towards South Philly. When you're driving in that direction, before sunset, you can look in your rearview mirror and see the sun. If you park before you, let's say for argument's sake, before you make that right turn on Washington, if you park right there and just get out your car and sit on your trunk and look the opposite way in which you're driving, or just sit and look in your rearview mirror and pay attention to your phone, you're going to hear that Adhan for Maghrib go off while you're still looking at the sun. And this really throws people off when it's cloudy. Because when it's very cloudy, it's already dark in the middle of the day because it's cloudy. So the sun is getting low, it's not over your head, so it really looks dark. So people say, man, Maghrib must be in. It's all dark and everything. And so we just need to really be careful. And, you know, as an imam or someone that's responsible for other people's timings and stuff like that, I have to pay attention to these things. Where people choose not to pay attention and not nonchalant about it, I don't have the ability to be nonchalant and casual about it. Because if you make a mistake based upon something that I laid down, then you don't get the blame, I get the blame. And I'm not trying to go to hell for leading y'all straight, you know, or being nonchalant about it. You know, it's one thing to be nonchalant about your own deen and not really care. But it's another thing to be nonchalant about your own deen as well as your family and your community and everyone else who you may be responsible for. Alhamdulillah. So we just want to reiterate that for anyone who never heard us talk about this out here in, you know, social media, internet land, and as well as from the brothers here who hear this all the time. So maybe they heard it again, maybe it clicked this time and they can explain it to someone who has any questions. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum.